Well, everyone, I would like to thank you for joining us on this week's edition of the Vet Tech series. I'm Tim, your chief staff here at the BVA, and I am very happy to introduce Deborah Erickson, who is the blind chef. And not only is she a blind chef, she also runs this great store as well as resource center called The Blind Chef. That is a fantastic resource if you are looking for options, suggestions, or tools and other components that's going to be very useful for you in success of your culinary adventures. Because, well, as we all know, doing things in the kitchen can be interesting to say the least, as my wife likes to explore it with me. At which point I like to respond to her, cooking is an art. I am an artist. Not everyone likes my art. Sometimes the dog doesn't like my art, but oh well, I still try. But what Deborah's going to be able to explore with us is definitely going to be some good options, some kitchen safety, as well as some offerings that she has. And we'll continue this series with Deborah in the future, where we'll talk about barbecuing as we come into that spring and summer timeframe. And so I'm looking forward to being able to have more conversations with Deborah and learning more about how to become a better cook so the dog doesn't turn his nose up at me. I expect my kids not to like my cooking. I got that. I'm a spicier guy. But hey, at least when my dog walks away, I know I got some issues. So Deborah, help me about how to be safer in the kitchen and what can I do to make my culinary experience more successful.
Well, it might be time to get a new dog.
That ain't gonna happen. But
No, thank you for having me today. I really appreciate it. Um, Veterans are one of my favorite groups. I actually worked at the Palo Alto VA for 13 years as a recreational therapist, and my son is currently active duty. So I am so honored to be part of this group today. I'll tell you a little bit about myself so that you know what my credentials are for this is I am a culinary school graduate and I was the only blind student. And I also, until last Friday, taught evoke rehab meal preparation at the Oregon Commission for the Blind. So I've been teaching blind adults and adults with vision loss how to cook for a very long time. Um, I appreciate this opportunity, and I just want to say that most of the items that I'm going to talk about, and also I'm going to talk about informational tips and strategies for how to cook with vision loss, because in culinary school, I had a lot of problems to solve. And with my students that I would teach, they had a lot of problems that I had to become creative and solve. And so that is kind of how the Blind Kitchen came to be, organizing all of that information. So the first thing we're going to talk about is safety in the kitchen, because a lot of people, especially, and I know with veterans, I think they're letting blind veterans in now, but not, if it is, it's new and it hasn't been for many, many years. So most of you in this audience have probably had vision at one point in time, and through whatever circumstances, diseases, age related, are now experiencing vision loss, which makes you come to a webinar such as this. So the two most daunting factors that people resist going back into the kitchen to cook after vision loss are, of course, heat and sharps. Those are the two. So I'm going to talk about a couple of things that are related to protecting your hands and your body from physical harm. But I'd also like to open the floor to questions to make sure that I am guiding the discussion to where your needs are at. If most of you are experienced cooks, your needs will be very different from someone who is just learning how to cook. And I just want to make sure that I'm catering to the group I'm in front of right now. So let's start with cutting and chopping. A couple of strategies and one specific tool I'd encourage you to consider. There's a thing called the cut glove, and it's a cut resistant glove. And where I found out about this, I was working as a cook in a restaurant deli combination, and they made all of their cooks wear it. I didn't have to wear it just because I was blind. The insurance company required all of the cooks to wear them because they resulted in far less injury. And what it is, it's made of polyethylene fibers and it's a weave. And you put it on your hand that will be holding the food because the hand holding the knife is safe. It's the other hand that's in danger. And it's quite stretchy and it flexible. It's not really thick. It's not real metally. You can easily ball your hand into a fist with it. And it's also slightly stretchy. And what you do is you put it on the hand holding the food, and I can literally hold my palm upward while I'm wearing this glove and take a very sharp knife and go back and forth across my palm, and it won't cut through. I feel the absolutely I can, but I'm sliding it back and forth and nothing happens. And if you go to the website, which is theblindkitchen.com, I've got audio described videos. One of them is called The Cut Glove, and it actually demonstrate where I put a miniature cucumber into one of the finger or thumb cavities of the cut glove and then went back and forth, and then pulled it out. And there was no damage to the skin of the cucumber that was inside, and there was no damage to the glove. So those are a really good tool. And that cut glove is especially helpful when you're grating things like on a box grater. And if you're doing cheese or you're doing carrots or you're doing potatoes, I don't know of any cook, cited or not, that hasn't left part of their DNA in using a box grater. So you have two choices here. You can wear the cut glove. Of course, it'll be the hand holding the food, this time your dominant hand. And when you get to the end, you can either have a chef snack when that cheese gets too close where you're not sure, or if you wear the cut glove, you can go all the way down. And what happens if you accidentally do hit it on the grater, if you're wearing the glove? Or what if you are cutting a carrot or slicing a potato and the knife does touch the glove? What's going to happen is I'm going to stop. If I feel pressure and I'm not expecting to feel it, I'm just going to stop in a second. If I had not been wearing the glove, by the time my brain gets the message that I've cut my skin, I'm already injured. And so this cut glove gives me that extra layer of protection, time to stop before I do myself any kind of damage. So that's a really good tool for cutting. We also have, in terms of safety, I'll give you an informational tip. At work, we had what we call sharps baskets. And if you live in a household with other people that share a kitchen with you and they don't have vision loss, it's real easy for them to glance in the sink and say, oh, there's a knife in there, I'm not going to touch it. But we can't glance and have that information. So we put these sharps baskets, they're basically kind of like an extended pencil drawer organizer, just a little rubber-footed box that if there's a sharp tool in my kitchen and it's not in my hand or my husband's hand, if it's a peeler, if it's a pair of scissors, a butter cutter, whatever the sharp tool is. I got muted somehow. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, hear you just
Okay.
fine.
Okay. So if that tool is not in my hand, it's either going to be in the sharps basket at my workplace, but I also keep one in the back left of the sink because that's my preference. So that if the knife is dirty, I don't want to take time to clean it. I can just go drop it in that sharps basket behind the sink and get to it when I have time. Because cooking with vision loss is a notoriously slow. We're slower than other people. I don't think I ever finished a practical in culinary school on time because it was kind of a dangerous place. The other students were under the same time pressure, just like the cooking shows. You have an hour and a half to produce a soup or a salad and an entree for 3 people and with the requirements. So people were running around that kitchen. So people were rushing around the kitchen. It was not a real great place for a cane user. So I just kind of had to let that getting it done on time go. but and I wasn't the only one that didn't finish, but I was the only one that never finished. And the chefs would say, if you can't finish on time, finish strong. And that became my mantra. I want the product to look good. I was never planning on working in a fancy restaurant, so I wanted to get the skills down so that I'd be able to teach it effectively. And that was the goal. So the Sharps baskets are a good way to share an item with other members of your household that keeps everybody safe. Are there any questions about these?
Yes. My name is Eduardo Miranda. I have a quick question.
Hi, Eduardo.
The item is called a cut glove, but when we cut and grate, we use two different hands. Are these multiple items or is it a reversible glove?
It's a reversible glove. It's ambidextrous. It can be worn on either hand. And it's exactly the same on the front as it is the back. So you put it on your right hand or your left hand. It has 4 fingers and a thumb cavity. So it's just like wearing a glove.
Thank you. Thank you for
I
clearing
want
that
to
up.
mention one more thing. Oh, you're welcome, Eduardo. I do want to mention one more thing. I'm glad you brought that up. And that is they are not puncture proof. So if you have something with a very sharp tip, or we have a talking thermometer with quite a sharp probe on it so that it can get into the meat, the center of it, it will not cut the threads, but it can separate them. So you want to be real careful to know that it is cut proof, but not puncture proof. Okay, so we have, I think, 18 items related to cutting and chopping, protecting your fingers. There's a finger guard. There's a slicing guide to make sure that you get equal slices, even widths, so that they look nice. And I can go there if you guys want to. But I wanted to, at this moment, I wanted to talk about one other very helpful strategy. And that is what we call a work tray. And you guys saw them in the military. They're just a standard work tray that you see in a hospital or a cafeteria or a school. And they are pretty much destruction proof. You can't destroy those. I've never seen one go through. And I use those for cutting boards and work areas, and for a couple of reasons. One, I never use a cutting board anymore because the little food particles would drop. Okay, now I'm unmuted. My JAWS keeps telling me I'm getting muted, and I'm not sure why, but there we go. So the work trays. So I would not use a cutting board. I used to use wooden ones when I could see, but now I don't, because the food would fall off onto the counter down the sides of it. And I just use that work tray with nothing else in it. And in the Blind Kitchen, you can get your set from a restaurant store or whatever, but we send a dark one and a light one, colored one. And the reason is, if you have residual vision, I'd encourage you to use it. I'm all for it. I used what I had for as long as I could. And what it does is, if you're cutting a white onion, you might want to cut it on the dark board. That way you'll have a little more visual information available to you. If you're cutting a red onion, you might want to use the light colored work tray. The other thing that happens there, if I'm measuring, if I'm, doing anything and I accidentally knock over a bottle of vanilla or liquid or whatever, it happens to everyone once in a while. My spill then is not going down across my counter, down the front of my cabinets, and onto the floor. Most spills will be cleaned in that work tray, where it has that lip to catch it, that slight lip, and that does not interfere with my cutting at all. So that's another tip. If you can get your hands on work trays, they can really help prevent messes, keep you organized. Because if you have a defined place where your ingredients are, you're not going to be searching all over the place for them. You take them out at the beginning of your recipe. You're making cookies, the vanilla, the 2 eggs, the baking powder, baking soda, and that way, first of all, it's a real drag when I go to the refrigerator and I'm making cookies and I'm at the point where I'm creaming the sugar and the eggs and I find out I only have 1 egg left and I need 2. I can't hop in the car and go to the store and get the eggs. So it kind of takes the air out of my sails when that happens. So with these work trays, if I gather all of the ingredients I need, it's going to make my cooking experience a lot easier and more efficient because I know they're there. I know I have them and they're handy. And then when I get done using the baking soda, I put it away in the cabinet. When I get done with the eggs, I put them away. But what if I'm cooking and I notice I'm done with the cookie dough, it's all mixed, I'm ready to form the cookies, and the vanilla is still on the tray. I'll remember then that I forgot it, and now I still have a second chance to get it because I wasn't able to glance over and see that I hadn't used it yet. So those work trays are really handy to have. Any questions on those?
Yeah, this is Terry Cubble in Las Cruces.
Hello.
Yeah, my question is the glove heat resistant? So if I'm doing multitasking in the kitchen, I can't cut myself, but I decide I want to grab a hot pan or something like that, and I think I have a glove on. Will it melt or anything like that, or is it heat resistant?
Good question. It is not meant for heat protection. I'll talk about the glove that is. However, that being said, when I'm making roasting a chicken or roasting a turkey, where I need to get my talking thermometer probe into the thickest part of the meat closest to the bone, because that's the last part to cook, and I need it to get to 165 so I don't kill all these people I love. I do put a cut glove on my hand. Now it's better than my skin being on it. So that way I can touch the turkey for just a second to find out where is that spot that I need to find. I lift my hand, let it cool, touch it again. So I do use the cut glove for heat protection because it's better than trying to find it with my skin. But the gloves that are meant for heat protection are amazing. So they are also gloves. They're not mittens, where your four fingers are in one cavity and your thumbs in another. They are not rectangle or circular quilted pads. Now, I grew up on the quilted pads and they provide excellent protection against heat. They're so thick, but you lose your tactile information when you're doing that. It's just you can't hardly adjust anything, especially if it's a heavy casserole dish you're pulling out of the oven. You kind of got to commit to where your hands are going to be, and there's very little room for adjustment there. But these are made out of cotton as well, but the cotton's not thick enough to protect your hands, but they're covered front and back with silicone designs. The silicone is heat proof. You can bake cookies in silicone containers. But what these do also is they offer non-skid protection. When I put my hand, if I'm wearing those gloves and I'm touching a metal pan, it's something that's non-greasy. I can't even rub my hands back and forth on it. But let's say I'm pulling a heavy casserole dish out of the oven, I can move my little finger over more, or maybe my two outside fingers to get a better grip underneath it. They're really good. And we use them at work all of the time. And they're machine washable, and machine dryable, such as are the cut gloves. And I just have a kitchen laundry basket in my kitchen. And if, let's say I'm doing that turkey and now I've used the heat gloves to get the turkey out of the oven and onto the top of the stove so I can temp it. Now I'll take off those gloves. I'll put on my one cut glove. I'll use it for that minimal amount of heat protection to find where I need to insert my thermometer probe. And then let's say it's only 158 degrees. So it is not ready to go, but I've contaminated that cut glove. So I can just take it and throw it into the kitchen laundry. And I have about 6 of them in my kitchen. And I have about 6 of the UV gloves as well, because if I accidentally touch the turkey or whatever, these can just go through your washer and dryer, and they literally hundreds of times. They're eventually the cotton in the cut gloves does get a little bit stretchier, but if it gets too much where you feel unsafe, you just throw it away. But you can wash it many, many, many times. So that's a good heat one. There's a couple of other heat things that I'd like to tell you about. One of them are oven rack guards. And what they are, they're a 14 inches long, and they're made out of very bright colors. So if you have vision available to you, that can help you to see. But it's like a long tube. It's made out of silicone, and it's meant to stay in the oven on the front of your oven racks. Usually you have two, some people have three in their ovens. And what you do is it's like been cut on one side from left to right all the way across, so that, and then little finger light projections come out of it. So when you push that onto your oven rack, now these little fingers grab it from the top and grab it from the bottom and hold it in place, and they can adjust for where the perpendicular rack lines are. So it's going to be right in the front. And so, first of all, does it protect you from burns? Not 100%, because hot silicone is hot silicone too, but it's not as hot as the metal. And the other thing is, when you go to open your oven with wearing your heat gloves, I don't think scars on your burn marks on your forearms are proud scars to have when there's a better way, because nobody really celebrates that. What you do is you put on those two heat gloves, one on each hand. And again, just like the cut gloves, they're ambidextrous. It doesn't matter which hand you put them on. You just want to make sure you've got the thumb in the right place, and then the other fingers will follow. And you just reach your fingers in to the oven, and you just don't put your arms in. Just wrap your fingertips around the front of the rack and pull it out halfway. Instead of putting your food into the hot oven where your forearms might hit the top of it, now you're bringing the oven out to you. And then you can take that dish off of your stovetop and move it onto that rack that you've just pulled out. And again, you're still wearing the heat gloves, so you just gently push it back. Your hands have never been in the oven, and that food is safe and secure. It just really makes a difference. I would encourage you to not, it's an extra step to pull the rack out and to push it back in, but it sure saves your forearms from a lot of scars. So the other thing Tim asked me to touch on was labeling, and this is Vet Tech Talk, so I want to talk about that. So labeling can be inexpensive, or it can be very expensive. It can be very high tech, or it can be very low tech. And let me start with the low cost and low tech options. Now, some of you might be familiar with bump dots. They're just, what they are is cabinet bumpers is what they really are, but they jack up the prices for the blind and call them bump dots. So you can get a lot cheaper generally at Home Depot. And they're little half circles usually, although there are different shapes. And you can put them on dials so that you know where they're at. If you have like a flat screen dial, if you want to know on your microwave where your number 5 is and where your 0 is, then you know where all the other numbers are because of the placement of those dots. The other numbers are going to be spaced around them. In terms of labeling items in the kitchen, though, I have like garlic powder. I use garlic powder often. I use onion powder often. I use salt and fresh ground pepper often, and I also use a seasoning salt blend. It changes up from time to time. For my garlic powder, I have 1 dot on top of the lid. It's a little on top of the lid of the jar, and 1 dot because it's 1 ingredient, garlic powder. The onion powder, I have 2 dots. And you may say, well, Deborah, that's just 1 ingredient too. And you'd be 100% right, but it has 2 O's. So that's how I know that is onion powder. You've got to come up with a system that works for you. And then the seasoning salt blend, I have 3 bump dots on it. That's as high as I go because it has more than 1, but I can easily grab any of those. We have salt and pepper sellers that we like. And the reason I want to tell you about these is, number 1, they're very adaptive because they are short. They're about 2 3/4 inch tall and 2 3/4 inch wide. So they're a short, squat thing, so they're almost impossible to knock over. The other thing is they're an apothecary style jar. So the lid is hooked. It's got a gasket seal. And when you open it, it stays attached to the bottle. And it goes back and it touches the countertop too, your workspace. So now you're like on a 3-point system here. It's going to be almost impossible to knock over. And with fresh ground pepper, I think it's the only way to go. But if you have vision loss and you're trying to, first of all, it takes 2 hands to grind a pepper grinder. And it's worth the effort, believe me, but it's time consuming. And with vision loss, I don't know exactly how much I'm producing with each turn of the grinder. So what I do is I take my pepper cellar and I pre-grind about a half a cup of the fresh ground pepper. And because it's in this cellar with the seal, with the lid, when I close it, it's going to smell fresh ground every time I open up that lid because it's not exposed to air. And on the salt cellar, it's got a smooth top. That's how I think about it. But for the Blind Kitchen, we put a prickly sticker on the top of the pepper. So pepper's prickly. So just with a touch of my fingers, I know what each of those 5 jars are, no matter where they're setting. So that's a very low cost of labeling. Another thing you can do is rubber bands. When you go to the grocery store, or if you use an app like Be My Eyes or Ira, and you say, oh, my cream of mushroom soup is almost exactly like my cream of chicken soup. How am I going to know in 3 months which is which? You can use a system like a rubber band and put it on the cream of mushroom. And the reason I say that is because chicken doesn't have an R in it. Mushroom does. So the rubber band begins with an R. So as you can see, it's kind of like creatively coming up with systems so that the next time you go to that cabinet, you're going to know which is which, even if it's 6 months down the line. So those are some low tech, low cost ways of labeling things. Now there's a couple of things out there. One is called the Pen Friend, and we don't sell it in the Blind Kitchen, not yet, but it is I'm not going to go into detail, but it is a pen that's roughly shaped like a cigar. And this particular item is meant for the blind and visually impaired. And it comes with that pen that is a recording device, and it comes with stickers that have their own unique number. So if you take that sticker and you put it on your cinnamon jar, you can use the pen to record it. You say cinnamon, and then every time you go back then and you touch that pen after you've turned it on to that particular sticker, you'll hear the word cinnamon in your own voice. And it's a really cool product. And it's pretty simple to operate. Now, another one system out there that I think is fabulous is called Way Around, and they are tags. So they're meant for labeling things as well, and they're actually going further with theirs, but in the Blind Kitchen, that's what we use them for. And you download a free app to your phone, and they have a lot of very good instructional YouTube videos. But if you go online, you download the video, and all your information now is going to exist in your account on the cloud, and that's all free. They sell the tags. I think they have 7 different styles. And what you do is they sell stickers and magnets, but they all work the same way. You can use voiceover, and they work with TalkBack as well. And you'll follow the prompts, and then you'll say, I want to put let's see, Alfredo sauce. And then I speak it records it, and then I hold it to the sticker that's on the top of that jar or whatever. And every time I go there with my phone, with the Way Around app open, I can listen and read that tag and know what it is. And in the Blind Kitchen, we do short tutorial videos. And so I have over 30 different colored chef coats, and I have no color at all anymore. So instead of asking my husband, what color is this? What color is this? They have buttons that you can sew into it, or I use safety pins to tell you the truth. I put them in the left hem of my clothing, and then I just got to take my phone and run it and have it read each of those little buttons, and I'll know instantly which chef coat I have, assuming I've put enough detail in when I created the tag. So those are some really cool ways, low tech and high tech, of actually labeling and identifying things in your kitchen and pantry. Any other questions?
I have a question. This is Sheldon McKinney.
Hi, Sheldon.
You say you use thermostat. What type of talking thermostat do you use for your cooking? What brand?
Oh, it's Kaizen. I think they're the clearest. They last the longest. That's the brand I sell in the Blind Kitchen, because I'm kind of like America's test kitchen of adaptable equipment. I bought lots of models of things because I wanted to get the most blind friendly one and the one that was most usable. And so Kaizen is the one that I selected. I think they're excellent.
So is it very accurate, or how accurate is it for the most part when you're cooking?
It has been very accurate for me, because we used to have to in culinary school, we'd have to plunge them into cold water to check our thermometers to make sure they were good, because improperly temped food can be dangerous, even if it's on like the serving line or whatever. It's got to be kept at a certain temperature out of the danger zone. So we often had to, and I had absolutely no problems. Now, when it starts getting a little bit whack is when the battery starts to die. And so if you hear it either sounding garbled or it gives information that can't possibly be true, that means your battery's going bad, and that's not your battery's failing, and that's not the thermometer's fault. That's batteries run out. Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Deborah, it's Tim. Thank you very much for that great initial conversation. You know, a couple things I point out that I am definitely interested in learning more about. So your the fingertip savers. Because that's one where it's like I'm not so much of a glove guy. I like gloves, but I don't like gloves in the kitchen. It's because I like having access with my palms to stuff. So it's like, what are those fingertip guards?
Okay, so there's a finger guard. What it is it's made out of stainless steel, and they have models with one ring on it for your fingers, but I chose the one with two because that's less likely to flip around if it gets wet or oily. And what you do is, let's say you're right-handed, so you're going to be holding a carrot with your left hand. So you're going to put this over two of your fingers. You can put it, it'll be, the rings will be on your fingers and facing your palm, but in front of those rings, against your knuckles, is a plate of steel, a little steel rectangle. So when you come up the carrot with the knife and you bring it up, it can't hit your fingers because it has this little stainless steel rectangle. It's great for if you're learning how to cook or you need a little bit of extra time to make sure that your slices are consistent, because instead of cutting and going right through, you can actually put the knife down, use your fingers to make sure that rectangle is in the right place, pick up your knife again, and then go through with confidence, knowing you've got the size that you want. We have another tool called a slicing guide that does that a little more efficiently. And that is, if you have, let's go back to the proverbial carrot. You actually, it's almost like a fork with 12 prongs on it. So it's got a plastic handle, it's got like 12 prongs, and you stick that thing straight down into the carrot so that the 12 prongs are inside the carrot itself. And then you can take your knife and you could go if you want really thin slices, you put it in between the first and second tine and cut, and then put it in the next one, then put it in the next one. If you want your carrots a little thicker, you can go every other hole if you want to. I find it especially useful for tomatoes. That's a harder one for me because you get through the skin, which is generally quite tough, and all of a sudden you're in the soft meat of the tomato and that knife is just on its way and you don't have that much control. With the slicing guide, it can't go any further than the space between the prongs. It's a really good tool.
This is Michelle.
Hi, Michelle.
Hi, thank you. This is an awesome discussion today. Thank you. I'm wondering about the cut glove and using a mandolin, because I love a mandolin, but it's scary sharp.
Yeah, it is scary sharp. And to tell you the truth, I wouldn't recommend it.
Okay.
But I have now, OXO has something they call a garlic slicer, and it's a mandolin, and you can't hurt, well, you could hurt yourself when you're washing it or whatever, but it has a hand protector that has contact with the food. Your fingers are nowhere close to the blade. You're holding a plastic thing that's pushing the food down against the blade. And Pampered Chef has a larger one. It works beautifully. Again, it's got these little just kind of like tines of a fork that hold the food. And so if you have a potato in there, you're making scalloped potatoes, you slide it back and forth. It's on a track, so you can't get off track. It's being held there, and you just go back and forth, and the tongs or the tines retract as the food gets closer to the blade.
Oh,
They retract, and so it's adjusting as your food is disappearing into thin slices.
oh, well, scalloped potatoes was exactly what I was thinking of using the mandolin. So that, and that's from Pampered Chef.
Yeah, write to me at info@theblindkitchen.com and I'll send you a link to it.
Okay, thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Oh, this is Irina, and thank you again. This is really great information, and I do use the stainless steel fingertips protectors, and they work really, really well.
Oh,
So
thank
all
you.
the information that you have, if I go to the TBK, I could get all the information about what is the sharpest knife that is safe. That is safe.
A sharp knife is the only
Yes.
safe knife. If you use a dull one
I
and you cut
know.
yourself, you're gonna have a jagged wound. I mean, hopefully, if you have a cut glove, you won't, or a finger guard, you won't have that. But
No, I
you
do.
definitely want to be sharp.
Yeah, I do have the cut gloves. I use all those gloves, and this is really good. So, which brand would you pick for the sharp? Because I'm going into knives now because I'm throwing away all of my. So, if I go to your TBK, that is your website. You
Yes,
have all that information.
it's theblindkitchen.com, and
Okay.
I don't
But-
sell knives. I don't sell knives, and the sharpest thing I have is a peeler that attaches to your. It works very much like the finger guard, except it puts the a vegetable or fruit peeler right in the palm of your hand instead of at the end of a stick. If you're holding it,
Oh.
it puts it right in the palm of your hand. So thank you for bringing that up. The other thing I want to say about any of this we have over 80 tools now in the Blind Kitchen that are meant specifically to be used for the blind and visually impaired. But about 90% of them weren't made for that. They weren't made for us. So so if you go on the website, let's say we'll go with egg rings. So there's silicone rings that help you to pour liquid food like pancake mix or eggs into a pan, and it gets held into a predictable shape, a circle, which you can't do without vision loss. Liquid's going to go wherever it wants to, but these help. But if you want to learn more about what that is, first of all, if you get the egg rings, they're going to come in a package that's marked both in large print and braille. So every tool comes in its own package. And then you can go on the website, which is extremely accessible, and find the egg rings. You can do a search and find the egg rings, and it'll tell you there'll be a video tutorial or a very carefully written description of what the tool is, what it does, why it's blind friendly, and how to use and care for it. So it's a pretty nice thing. So if you forget something, or what did she say about that? The tutorials or the written descriptions, people really like them.
Yeah, but no, this is very interesting, because I know sometimes I purchase a lot of kitchen items that I think would be safe for me, and then I have all these things from Amazon, and no, they're not working. They're not working. But this here, what you're giving us, is very good information, and saves
I'm
us money
glad.
instead of buying all these other contraptions. But yeah, this is good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I have purchased many contraptions. Believe me, I've definitely, I hate the word gadgets, but there are a lot of gadgets out there. I don't want it used in connection with the Blind Kitchen because these are tools. If it's a gadget and it doesn't work, I'm not going to sell it, even if they say it's blind friendly. It's got to work. And I have tested it with students, and I'm very careful about that. So thank you.
I have another question.
Okay.
This is Eduardo Miranda again. When it comes to safety and when I do work up the nerve to try to get in the kitchen and I am by myself, I do not want to leave a mess behind. And sometimes I do get scared to use the burners. I have gas burners still, and do you have any safety tips when it comes to gas burners?
I
'Cause
do.
I do hate the fact that I never know whether I put a little pan centered on a burner and then cleaning. Don't want to leave a mess behind because I will hear it. But sometimes these things that I use are sharp, even when I use a blender. I don't know if anybody's ever tried to clean a Ninja blender, but I mean, sighted people
Yeah.
and so even cleaning tips or burner tips when it comes to safety would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah. So blenders cut up your food, so they certainly can cut up your fingers too. It's real. You've got to be very careful. And you could wear a cut glove when you were doing that if you wanted to, but you lose so much of the tactile information when you're doing that. In terms of stovetops, now that is the more difficult cooking method, is cooking things on a stovetop, because if you're using the oven, if you can get past the initial fear, pull that rack out, put the food back in, now it's in a closed area that you don't have to worry about burning yourself until you are ready to open that door. On a stovetop, it's different. That could be exposed. So I'm going to tell you a couple of tips about how to know if your pan is centered on the stove. First of all, you have to pick the right size pan. And I think the most daunting stove is a glass top stove where there's no tactile information. So what you do is think of the science and logic of it. So you got to make sure you pick the right size pan. If you have too small of a pan for your heat source, the heat is going to come up the sides of the pan and it could burn the handle of the pan depending on what it was. It's just a dangerous situation. So if you're going to err in picking a pan that is larger than you think you need. But most of them are pretty predictable with what they are. And one thing I do is you know how you have like the pizza cardboard circles? You can get them from like for decorating cakes and stuff. I have those that are shaped like the size of my burners. So if I'm wondering if this pan is going to fit on this burner, I can take that piece of cardboard and put it under the pan. And if that cardboard is exposed under the pan, then I need to go to a smaller burner. That's all there is to it. But here's the deal. So when you are cooking, after you've turned on the gas and after that pan gets hot, you are no longer able to touch or be in contact with that heat source to know. So you have to have another way. And this is what you do. When I'm cooking on the stovetop, I spend a lot of time, you can tap the top of a stainless steel pan or an iron pan or whatever on your stovetop for just a second and come away with it and not get burnt. You can't touch hot water for just a second. You can't touch hot grease or sometimes not hot food because the food's going to come back with your finger and continue to burn you. But if you're touching the top of a pan that is on the stovetop, it shouldn't have food on it, and you can then assess it. So what happens is, let's say I'm making marinara sauce or something like that, and I'm stirring it and I accidentally knock it off center. Let's say I knock it off to the right a little bit and I'm not aware of it because it's a glass top stove. It's not going to tip or anything like that. The same principle applies for a coil or a gas stove. Now I'm going to, once again, what I do while I'm cooking is I'm going to touch the top of the pan. And then all of a sudden I'm going to say, oh, shoot, this left side is a lot hotter than the right side or the adjacent to it. And what is happening then, that tells me, is that the heat is climbing the side of the pan. So that's why it's hotter than the other ones. So I'm going to move the pan a little bit towards where it's too hot. And then I'm going to check again. Is it too hot? If you have it centered, it's going to be evenly hot all around the pan, and you'll know it's centered. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Yeah, it's really foolproof, but you can't just check it once. You really have to be kind of continuously monitoring it to be 100% confident that you are centered. And the other clue you'll get is if I'm cooking my marinara sauce and it's cooking at a certain rate, maybe I'll hear a bubble here and there or whatever. If I get it off center, the noise will stop. It'll slow down the cooking because it's now less efficient. Part of the pan is no longer on the heat source. So you can also use your ears to say, oh, something's changed in there. Let me figure out what's wrong here.
Yeah, this is Terry Kevel again.
Hello.
Yeah, I use the Way Around app. I was just wondering, is there text on the website, like an instructions that I could cut and paste it to my Way Around tag?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, so you have instructions for one of your products that you said you have in Braille on it.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, well, I don't read Braille. So if there was a text on the website that I could cut and paste and put it on my own Way Around tag, so I would have it available without me typing it out.
Yeah,
Anything like
good
that? Does that-
question. We have it on some of them. So here's what happened was we were making the videos and but they're very expensive and they take a lot of time. And I had more products I wanted to put on. So like the first 70 items, I think, have instructional videos. And if you go through the website in the store, it'll give you bullet points, but not the details. So thank you for that. I'm going to go back through and write those up real detailed, because the ones that were added later that we plan to make videos for, but we don't have them yet, are very written in text, and you can definitely get those. But
Okay.
the other, Tim, is that your name, Tim?
No, that was Terry saying okay.
Oh, Terry. Okay.
Mhm.
So if the other thing you can do is if you write to me at info@theblindkitchen.com, I'm developing a catalog that has all of this written information that tells it what it is, what it does, why it's blind friendly, and how to use and care for it. I could pop that into the body of an email for you, and then you could just copy it into your Way Around, the description field.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I just love the Way Around. It's just a great product.
I do too. In fact, I'm pairing up with them. Jessica Hipp is their CEO, and she knows the patterns of people who are buying things for cooking. She knows what they buy. So we're going to put together the Blind Kitchen Way Around collection based on her knowledge and my knowledge, because I think those are the most awesome in the freezer, especially because I'm a Braille reader, but I'm very, very slow. So my fingers are numb. And you're not going to get much information from like if you have let's say a square of ground beef and a square of ground turkey. You can't smell it. You can't really feel it to know it. They're just going to be cold lumps. And so you put those on. It just takes a second, and they're fine in the freezer. They're fine in the wash machine. They're fine in the dry cleaner. They're amazing. I really like the Way Around system too.
Thank you.
Start my video, mute my audio button.
Am I
So
muted?
go ahead.
Oh, hi, Deborah. I just wanted to say hello. This is Meredith. I'm the National Director of Development here at BVA. And
Oh, hi,
we are
Meredith.
thrilled to have you on. I think I had emailed you initially. And we just thought this is such a great thing to add to our series. And we work very, very closely with Jessica. She has been wonderful to us. And she attends our convention every year, and she'll be coming back. So I just wanted to say a quick thank you to you. We are very, very happy to have you on. So thank you.
Oh, thank you for having me. What a great group you have here.
We
Good
do have a great
questions.
group. Some troublemakers, but overall they're a good group.
This is Vern, and speaking of our convention, I don't think any of us would have a problem if you graced us with your presence in July. The information about it is on our website, and if you want to meet a whole bunch of blind veterans that don't want to take no for an answer, please come and join us.
Well, I appreciate that. You know what? I'll look into it. Is it? I assume it's is it in Washington, D.C. or California?
This year, we're actually having it in Jacksonville, Florida, Deborah. So Tim and I can get some information to you. about that. We can, you know, get into a
That
little
would
bit
be
of
great.
detail with you. Yeah, we'd love to have you.
Okay, thank you. I will definitely consider look into it. Thank you.
Oh, this is Irina again. I
Hi.
just have to tell you, hi, I just received some gloves for my fireplace. So you were talking about kitchen gloves, and I have a fireplace. And whenever I put logs in, my arms always get a little, because I can't see the hot doors, whatever. So I just received some gloves for my fireplace. See, that's another safety thing. I thought I
That's
would
very nice. That's very nice.
I just thought I would throw that
I'm
in.
glad
but-
you. I'm glad you did, because like I said, we don't want people putting their forearms in the oven if you can avoid it. You know, pull the food out to you. But for grilling and fireplace management, you're going to be exposed to hot air further up your arms. You can't pull the fire grate out to you. You've got to reach in there. So we have grilling gloves that go further up your arm.
Yeah,
They're
these
a
go
bit
almost,
cumbersome for the kitchen.
No.
Yeah, I don't use them for using my oven because they're too cumbersome to put on. It takes longer to put those on. The other ones just go to your wrist, so it's a little bit easier. But for barbecuing and grilling, and by the way, that is going to be the topic of the next presentation. I think it's in May, if I remember correctly. And we're going to talk about that. But those are a really good thing to have on your to protect your forearms for those two tasks.
And also too, lifting up the logs, you get splinters in your fingers and things like that. So now I'm going to be styling. So thank you. See, Timothy, Tim, I got my beautiful gloves.
No problem. No, I'm looking forward. Yes, it is sometime in May. Don't ask me the date right this second. But yeah, it's going to be a great one because I know some of the topics. I wanted to ask you today, but it's like, well, I'll just wait till May to bring up some of these other questions because it just pertains nicely to that subject as we get into that late spring, summertime festive atmosphere of cooking outside and some of the great stuff that is at your store. And for folks looking forward, if you go into the chat, you'll see the links for info at theblindkitchen.com as well as the website theblindkitchen.com. So that's over there in the chat.
Oh,
Very nice, Irina. Very
Thank
nice.
you.
But yeah, no, I can't thank you enough, Deborah, for coming on and having these conversations because it's an area whenever we think about technology, we're always thinking about high tech. But what about these low tech and no tech solutions that is a part of the assistive technologies in our lives? And the kitchen is one of those examples of areas that we need to look outside and become tinkers like you are with looking at what's the right items. What is the America's Blind Test Kitchen going to be able to say, yes, I could recommend this thermometer and these set of gloves because like Irene, I know so many of us have done this too. It's like, Amazon, I'm going to bulk order like 10 different scales and just see which one works. And then,
Right.
So thank you.
Well, that's
for
one of the
doing
nice things about the Blind Kitchen too, is you can listen to the videos and you'll hear what the voice is like. If you don't like it, you say, okay, we're not buying that model or the talking thermometer. You can't do that on MaxiAids or Amazon, unfortunately.
No, you can't. And this way, then we don't have to do that return because we know what we're getting because you've already demonstrated that versus us having to demonstrate our own end return. So I appreciate that and that great set of resources that you have. And you also have a YouTube channel?
Well, I do. I have a YouTube channel. We need more followers so I can name it, but please follow us so we can. I think we're almost up to 300 now, but I forget how many you have to have before. But yeah, we do. But we don't have any links to anybody else or anything like that. It's just the videos providing information.
Yeah, but it's all
I guess
great information.
Yeah, we're going to be signing up for the YouTuber. I'm ready.
Thank you.
I'm ready. Show and tell my gloves.
Yeah, we put good. I love it.
Oh, Okay, YouTube.
Uh,
Okay.
Totally good, Irene. So
Oh, I should
already,
be made a mute.
it's all good. Don't worry. That's all. But anyone else, any questions, thoughts, or feedback for Deborah and the the Blind Kitchen?
Hi, this is
Oh,
Louis.
hey, Louis.
I just have one question. That's like when you're trying to light something up, let's say whether it's a grill, right? You're using a grill lighter, or it's a gas stove and maybe it's a little dirty, so you don't know when the flame comes out, right? Like, do you have any advice for that?
Not especially. First of all, but I'd get one of the longer ones, with like that's shaped kind of like a gun where you pull a lever and it comes out about 6 inches away from your hand. The flame does. Do you know what I'm talking about? You like
Yes,
click
ma'am.
it. It's okay. So
Yes,
first
a
of all,
motor
have
gun.
it ready to go before you put the before you put the gas on, so that gas isn't spilling into the room. Another thing we're going to put on theblindkitchen.com is we don't expect anyone to have any fires or anything like that, but it's called the Flame Tamer, and it's actually made out of, I want to say, fiberglass, and it's a 40 by 40 inch blanket. It's getting photographed right now. It's quite thin, and you just throw it over and it extinguishes the frame. So you could get a fire extinguisher, but then you're going to have a mess. You can try to have a lid nearby, to turn it off, but it's a real, and it's reusable. They say you can also, if you end up in a situation like where your hotel room's on fire or something like that and you have to get out, it'll actually protect your skin from the flames. You wrap it around yourself. So that's another thing to have on hand. Another thing we have in the Blind Kitchen is a first aid kit. It's a very small one because you don't need much in the Blind Kitchen. If it's just a minor cut that you experience, and the last time I cut myself, I was opening like a pop top can. It was really hard, and I pulled too hard, and I ended up cutting the skin between my thumb and forefinger. But it's nice to have this little kit in the kitchen because it has Band-Aids in it, and it has finger cuts. So if you get a minor cut and you have a Band-Aid on and you're cooking, your hands are wet. You're constantly washing them. You're working with wet food, and it's real easy to not know that Band-Aid has fallen off into the food, and it's kind of disgusting. But if you clean your hand, dry your hand, minor bleeding, you stop it, you put the Band-Aid on it, then you put these things, they're kind of like water balloons. They roll down your finger and tightly encapsulate the finger with the Band-Aid on it. And it's a little uncomfortable because they're tight, but they need to be tight to keep the Band-Aid on there and keep water from getting in there. But you'll know if that thing falls off. So those are really nice to have in there, and you get back to cooking really, really quickly. So but going back to the fire thing or the lighting thing, yeah, I would definitely use one of those longer lighters that keeps it away, and maybe practice with someone with vision repeatedly until you feel confident that you have it right. I mean, you could use bump dots to say, this is exactly where my hand, maybe on the front right of the burner, and this is exactly where my palm needs to be when I'm reaching over that flame. It's a lot of muscle memory where you just train, just do it again and again and again, perhaps with someone with vision that can help you get it right, and then you're independent on your own the rest of the time.
I understand that. I was wondering more like, how would I know like that the lighter lit up, right? How do I know it's not out of gas or whatever?
Yeah, I would light it first, because you're going to be able to wave your hand over the top of it, and you'll be able to hear it too. If you use that particular, most brands, you can, if you do that, you can wave you're holding the trigger with your finger, and then the other hand, you can usually hear it, and certainly wave your hand above it and feel that it's on or not.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
This is Irina. Can I make another comment on the lighting? I have a lot of those little ones, but sometimes I don't know if they're on or off. Maybe this is not safe. I got myself a miniature torch. It is really cute. It's like 4 inches. And my son showed me how to use it. And I use that for my fireplace. Because many times, you know, you can't hear and you have your hand into the fireplace with the wood and you try to light it up and nothing happens. So Amazon, of course, it's a miniature torch and it works really well. He set it to the light, you know, that it doesn't zoom out.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, no, I know maybe it's kind of, you know, my son was kind of hesitant about it, but he showed me and I'm very careful. But that to me is less frustration because I know when he tried to light something, even whenever I help my son with when he does crabs, you know, catches them, and I can't go in there because so with this little torch and he's got a, I mean, I am being safe. I have glasses on and now I have these gloves. Man, I'm going to be stylish. But I found that the little torch is to me was safer for me to light the fireplace. And also I'll try it, you know, when I help my son. I don't know. I mean, to me, it seems safe, but in, you know, your position, you're more educated on that. But I find that was so much easier for me. Those little things you buy at the stores, many times I don't know if they're lit on and I can't hear it. And then if you try again, couple of clicks, then you could hear it. So to me, that little miniature torch lighting system was really good.
Now, is that a food related torch, like for doing a creme brulee or something like that?
Yeah, I did have the creme brulee and then I gave it to somebody, you know, I shouldn't have, I should have kept it, you know, but to me, this is maybe like 4 inches high. And it's yellow, bright yellow, and it's got the little hose and safety features and everything. So to me, it is awesome because I don't have to put my whole hand in there, even though now I have new gloves, but I don't want to get them dirty.
Right. Well, it sounds like you solved the problem. I mean, good for you and good for your son.
But no, that little miniature torch to me is to me, it's very, I know how to use it, but I know it's frustrating to light something, you know, in your barbecuer and things like that. And yeah, so again, thank you for all your information. Thank you, Tim, for being patient here with me. Okay, sorry. Oops.
And talk about a safety consideration. That one, Lou, yeah, that's a very hard one that if anyone ever does come up with a good solution for us on the blind side of light to figure that out without involving hands over open flames and other types of situations, that would be great because, man, sometimes you don't hear that thing clicks on. So, and Irina, that was great with the torch because what if my wife will let me play with one now? But anyways, so, and anyone else with any thoughts or questions for Deborah before we let her go? All right. Well, Deborah, thank you very much for coming on today. We'll go ahead and yeah, definitely look forward to getting you back over in the May timeframe. So we talked about how to use the grill appropriately and different things that we can do. So I know there's definitely going to be more talk about gloves with that conversation, as well as some more things about torches, thermometers, and other things that
flamethrowers.
I don't know what type of grilling you do, but grilling at a distance. But, though I do say that some of my hammer grills are frisbees, so I guess we could use the flamethrower to toss them to the dog. That will just not fetch them. But thank you, thank you for that. So.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. And even more importantly, to all of you in this group, thank you for your service. It's much appreciated.